So for a few minutes, I'd like to take a look at what's going on in Italy and Greece and make some comparisons with the Occupy Wall Street movement here in the U.S. In all cases, it started by people who feel powerless, living in a system controlled by the most wealthy and powerful, the 1%. They feel the only thing they have left is their voices and their dedication to protest. And many continue to question whether or not their actions will be enough to bring about the change they're looking for. Well, let's talk now to Charlie McGrath, founder of WideAwakeNews.com. Hey there, Charlie. Do you think those comparisons are fair ones between what's going on in Italy and Greece and what's going on here in the U.S.?
Absolutely. I mean, absolutely. It's a bankster protest. And I think once the Occupy movement realizes that they are protesting against the same people that the Tea Party movement was protesting against, since 2008. That parallel needs to be drawn, and it needs to be shouted from the rooftops, because the Occupy movement here, is talking about going after the too big to fail firms on Wall Street. The Tea Party movement is talking about too much government. But the message that needs to be delivered to all the people in the Occupy and the Tea Party movement is they are absolutely one and the same. So the people who are out protesting Wall Street right now, they are protesting the government, and vice versa. So if we look overseas and see what the people are protesting there, it is the implementation of bankster rule over these countries. Your report talked about Mario Monti and Papademos, right? These are bankster puppets. Papademos comes right from the European Central Bank to replace the Prime Minister of Greece, because the Prime Minister of Greece had the audacity to put make a referendum for his people if they were going to accept this bailout deal or not. Within 2 weeks, he was gone, and we have a bankster in there. If you look at Mario Monti in Italy, his track record, he is also a bankster puppet. I mean, he's the head of the European Trilateral Commission. He's a Bilderberger. He has the right pedigree to work on behalf of the banksters. This is why people are in the streets around the world.
So you're saying, Charlie, that, a lot of people call it scapegoating, what we saw in Italy and Greece. They saw Berlusconi step down, Papandreou step down. They said, okay, we're going to get two people in who actually know how to fix this, who know what's going on. You're saying the opposite. You're saying that these leaders were actually speaking for the majority of their people, and now they've been replaced by leaders who have a much closer ties with sort of the 1% in those countries?
They are the 1%. These are banksters. They come from that community. I think the legitimate Prime Minister Berlusconi in Italy, he was under tremendous pressure to do something on behalf of the banks to make sure they wouldn't realize a loss. The same thing inside of Greece. And I can't even imagine what was said to them behind closed doors, especially in Greece when they were going to put it to a referendum vote. The proof is in the pudding. Look what we have right now. We have the leadership being completely decapitated from these countries, and we have interim banksters in there so they can do the bidding of the banks. Well,
let's contrast then for a moment what we've seen in these two countries. Certainly we saw a changing of the guard, a change in leadership as a response to the financial crises in both of those countries. What about what's happening here? Occupy Wall Street still, of course, in its very young stages, only 2 months. Voices are loud, messages becoming more clear.
Sure.
What about how our government here in the United States has been responding to that?
In some respects, a lot of people in the alternative media community don't like the word democracy, but in some respects, Europe is more of a democracy. They have more of a democratic situation going on in Europe than we do here. They don't have to worry about decapitating leadership in the United States because they've already co-opted our government. We had 535 members of Congress between the House and the Senate. And what are we talking about today? We're talking about this super committee of 12 slashing and burning the budget. And when this does occur, when the pendulum swings from the left to the right in the perceived left-right battle, we're going to see massive austerity that these senators and congressmen are going to be able to throw their hands up in the air and say, I didn't have anything to do with it. It was an automatic cut. If we couldn't come up with a deal in the super committee, then these cuts are going to be in place. So at least inside of Europe, you have these 17 EU nations that have a voice. And what we're finding out is if the voice isn't lining up with the banks, they're gone.
Let's talk about the super committee. I mean, in some senses, the super committee came about because the left and the right, as you say, seem to have a little bit of trouble first raising the debt ceiling, dealing with budget issues. So the super committee is formed. A lot of things that we've seen happen, especially in the last year or so, have happened as a result of perceived crisis here in this
Yes.
country. And I know you've spoken about this a little bit,
Absolutely.
the result of, crisis governing. Talk a little bit about what you see as some of the biggest issues with this.
Okay, well, great point, and you're absolutely right. For 3 years, we've been dealing with this governed by crisis. We're not a republic. We're not even a shoddy democracy in this country. We govern for the next crisis. If the crisis is the financial markets are going to freeze up if we don't bail out the too big to fail, we get it. The last time Congress represented the people of this country would have been September of 2008 when they returned a no vote to the bailout. We saw financial terrorist activity occur from that point forward, so these banksters and these too big to fail firms could get everything they want, and they do this by governing by crisis. The exact same thing we see going on inside of Europe. We need a crisis, we let it escalate so we can get rid of leadership, so we can implement austerity. And if we think in this country that it can't happen, then we need to wake up, because it is happening. We don't have representation anymore. That is why people are in the streets. That is why people are so frustrated. And we have, unfortunately, a mainstream media that's in the back pocket of these corporations that are not showing that message of the Occupy movement. They're picking the least eloquent person they could possibly find to put in front of a camera, and then they're making all kinds of puns and jokes about these people. But it isn't a joke. Main Street is literally withering and dying on the vine in this country and in Europe, and people really do feel like they have no other alternative. If they want a redress of their grievances, they're going to have to take to the streets. That is where the world has been led to, and that is where we're at.
It is so interesting, Charlie, when you talk about this governing by crisis. And every time there seems to be a deadline here in Washington, it never gets done before. It's always till the last day, and it's often sort of blows up in everybody's faces. Charlie McGrath, founder of WideAwakeNews.com. Thanks so much.
Thank you.